Hello everyone, thank you so much for being here today. It's always great to see such a wonderful turnout, so thanks again for being here. My name is Miguel, and I would like to welcome you to IdeasXChange's third forum of 2017, Happiness in the Urban Lands. In an increasingly urbanized world, the concept of happiness is sometimes lost in translation and perceived to be equal to time and pain. But this is of course not entirely true, since the pursuit of happiness should be of great importance as more people move to cities. And as we will learn today, elements such as technology, civic engagement, empowerment, among others, can all play a role in promoting happiness in urban spaces. Now, this wouldn't be possible were it not for the panelists and the speakers joining us here today. So, on behalf of all of us at IdeasXChange, we'd like to thank you, Michael, Elizabeth, Aidan, and Robin for taking the time to be here today. In a moment, my colleague Stephen will introduce our knowledge experts and the format of tonight's event. But before that, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about IdeasXChange. Oh, maybe just back. Yeah. One more behind? Sorry about that. Okay, so IdeasXChange is a startup think tank that seeks to address many of the world's socioeconomic and environmental issues through an innovation and sustainability lens. Now, the way that we do this is in two ways. One, we have the IdeasXChange Hub, which organizes forums, panel discussions, roundtable discussions, and workshops such as the one here today. The reason that we do this is because we believe that in the increasingly complex world that we live in today, it's very important for us to connect people from different disciplines, different backgrounds, and different industries. We also run an online magazine that's IdeasXChange.org, where we also feature the latest in innovation and sustainability news, primarily from UBC, but also from Vancouver and beyond. We also publish thought-provoking editorials on articles related to sustainability and innovation. So I encourage you to go take a look at the website. The writers in the magazine are comprised of not only UBC students, undergraduate, but also graduate students from UBC and other places. Now, to date, we've brought together over 500 people through our events, ranging from from students, academia, community members, and over 40 well-respected community leaders and industry experts to share their knowledge with us at our events. Now, these are just some of the pictures of our events. Today, we've hosted 14 of these events. This was our ecological economics workshop. So what we seek to do through our events is to bring in themes and events that are not unusual, but that bring in an out-of-the-box thinking to many of the world's pressing socioeconomic and environmental issues. So for instance, on the ecological economics workshop, we looked at things like, how do we make our economy more sustainable? How do we internalize the social and environmental costs from industry and from companies, which are things that are generally not included when making those calculations. So again, very thought-provoking content, but we don't make it too technical because we really want to encourage interdisciplinary thinking. Now, why do we do this? As I was mentioning previously, the challenges of our times are unprecedented, and it's important that we start to promote divergent thinking, connecting people from different schools, different faculties, instead of splitting people into different groups, for us to realize that everyone is brilliant in their own way, regardless whether they went to school or not, and to start exchanging ideas. Ideas exchange. Pun intended. Thank you, appreciate the support. Now, so what's coming up at IdeasXChange? So we posted a few forums for this year. In mid-October, we're actually going to host our first ever case competition, and we'll likely be partnering with the City of Vancouver to address one of the goals related to the Greenest City 2020 Action Plan. So it's going to be a day-long or 2-day-long case competition. So we're definitely looking for volunteers and people to get involved. So if you're interested, let us know, although we'll be publishing more information as time comes. This event today wouldn't be possible were it not for our sponsors and our partners at UBC. Thank you to the Leib Institute of Global Relations. They're the ones that have supported us in hosting this year's forums. through the Leo Idle Community Fund. We also want to thank the UBC Global Lounge. Thanks to the Global Fund, that's how we're able to promote the IdeasXChange writing contest, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a second. And our corporate sponsor, Guaniki Yerba Mate, that's why you're enjoying all these delicious drinks. They're doing some great work in terms of environmental stewardship in South America, while also promoting sustainable employment in South America. So make sure to check them out. And of course, the Science and the Graduate Society, and that's why we're able to host this event in this beautiful space here at the Alcoholada Science Center. We'll be doing some work with them in the coming months. And of course, these events, they wouldn't be possible at all were not for the volunteers that put in the time to create these forums. And special thanks to Stephen Chang, who has done an amazing job in putting the forums together, and this one as well. So this is what I was just telling you about. We hosted our first ever IdeasXChange writing contest where we made a call for submissions for articles related to sustainability, innovation, basically out of the box thinking ideas. And just yesterday we decided on the top 3 award winners, so we'll be announcing them this week. And I gotta tell you, the submissions were truly amazing. Some of them left me like, whoa. So we'll be publishing all of them later this week and next week, and over the next coming months. And we are recruiting, so if you're interested in the kind of work that we do, there is always room for anyone to get involved in IdeasXChange, from logistics, social media, sponsorship, external relations, you name it. And we always look for students that are in, regardless of which faculty you're in, but also people that are not on campus. So it's open to basically everyone that has this passion to promote divergent thinking and who's passionate about many of the world's pressing issues. Now I'd like to pass it on to Midori, who will be introducing our keynote speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. So I will introduce you guys to our keynote speaker today, Michael Simpson. He is the Executive Director of BCCIC. Prior to working for BCCIC, Michael was the Executive Director of Sky. He was an active voice for Canadian civil society at international forums ranging from the World Summit on Sustainable Development to UN meetings on renewable energy. During our event, he will be speaking on the role of the UN SDGs in British Columbia, world poverty, and urban happiness. Welcome.
Thanks for the invite, and thanks to the organizers, and I'm going to say thank you to the Yerba Mate company as well. If you want to do something really weird like synchronicity, sometimes I wonder, like, why do I talk all the time and I never know what's going to happen or what could happen in any given evening or why. And that's sort of how I anticipate what could happen tonight. And it starts out with the Yerba Mate thing, because for some strange reason on Sunday, somebody asked me, Mike, you speak Spanish, what does Yerba Mate mean? Now, why is that coming up in just 3 days? And we Googled it and we went through the history of Yerba Mate and we were looking at that. Anyway, for some reason, and then I'm drinking a Yerba Mate and I thought that's very strange. And believe it or not, it comes from the verb matar, to kill or to crush, the herb, which is Yerba. Anyway, just had to share that with you. What I'm actually here to talk about is the Sustainable Development Goals and this nexus between happiness and the urban environment. And I think the reason I'm here to talk is because I was invited, because a couple of you heard me speak at a UBC event in which we talked, and I got into a little bit of philosophical background about identity and who we are and who young people are in today's day and age, and what you face in the next 15 years, because that's what the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. It's the global agenda for the next 15 years that carries us to the year 2030. And when it comes to an urban lens, Goal 11 is about sustainable cities and communities that are resilient and sustainable and so on. And I could talk all day about the SDGs, I do that all the time, but what got me a little more excited is to think more about this happiness side of things and some of the challenges that we face on that. And I thought, first I'm going to pick on you. What's your name? Chuck. Can you just tell me what your definition of happiness is so I can get on the right page?
Okay, it's hard, isn't it? I think satisfaction is probably, I would say.
Okay. Satisfaction. I'm going to pick on you because you're close too. What's your name?
Adele, what's your?
Probably fulfillment and being supported.
fulfillment and being supported. So I'm going to ask you, because you're the next closest person, if I were to ask you, where does happiness reside, where would you say I could find it?
Realizing your dreams.
Realizing my dreams? Or your dreams? This is actually important, realizing my dreams or your dreams?
My dreams.
And where are your dreams?
I don't know. Depends.
Well, where would I find it? Where could I find one of your dreams?
Dopamine.
Eh? Dopamine? Is dopamine receptors? I'll tell you, this is exactly where I want to go, because in philosophy there's a very interesting thing that we look for here called deep structures, or surface structures or deep patterns. And so whenever you look at something, there will be what is the apparent surface structure, and then what's the deeper pattern behind it. If you look at all the clouds today, you know that that's a cloud, but that resembles in no way a summer cloud, but we recognize that as a cloud. And we go, that's a cloud, right? The deeper structure, if I took the title, which says happiness and, oh, I didn't see that, sorry. If I took the, what is that? That's the microphone? Okay. I thought this was the microphone, but I won't touch that, I won't hit that. They're making me nervous. The idea what I was trying to get at is that the deep structure, if we looked at the concept of happiness and I asked you, where is it? What is the nature of happiness? I think most of you would probably agree with me that you would find it inside your interior, right? You're not going to find it out there on the table or in the external environment. And yet, if I asked you about the urban environment, the urban lens, you would probably agree that that doesn't reside inside your mind, that resides somewhere out there, that I can go out and I can find it at a table or a building or a structure. That's the urban environment, right? And so we automatically have a philosophically interesting thing. We are trying to mix two worlds, the world of interiority and the world of exteriority, and herein lies a very interesting conundrum. Because right now, for example, what's your name? Aaron? Yeah. If I asked you, do you think anyone in this room can actually get inside you or see you? Where are you? Where's your interiority? Where's the boundary between self and the exterior world? Could you point it out for me? No. It's really hard, isn't it? Like a lot of us would say, well, it's my skin boundary, it's my sense of self, it's where my body ends, and inside my mind, inside is where I reside, and that's where you would find happiness. And so the first thing we're going to do when we take a look at the urban lens and happiness is we're going to see that they arise in two completely different dimensions. And you can, if you want to be an empiricist or a modernist or a scientist, spend a lot of time looking for happiness in externalities or how the world actually appears to you. So you could say, oh, if you want happy people in an urban environment, build them parks, or build them nice buildings, or build them nice universities, etc. And you'll look into the external environment. But the problem is that isn't where it resides, and the rules are different in both of those places. So now I want to jump to happiness, which is, I'm going to ask you what your definition of happiness is. What's your name?
Ida.
Ida?
Feeling of not having regrets.
That's beautiful. Yours?
I'm not going to go by my definition. I'm going to go by longevity measures. You live longer if your life feels like it has meaning. So to me, meaning is both internal and external.
All right. So there's a very famous psychotherapist who worked in Auschwitz. He didn't work in Auschwitz. He was sent to Auschwitz, and then he got sent to two further camps. And during that period, he studied this idea of meaning in relation to happiness. And if you read the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, then you'll see that actually meaning-making comes a little bit higher on the scale. And he postulated that actually people search for meaning, not happiness in and of itself. And he studied that. And I would say, this is what my main message to you tonight is that the Sustainable Development Goals, you landed in cosmic time and space at the one point in human history where we are the most challenged that our species will ever be. That's where you landed. And your ability to find meaning on the planet right now is higher than any other time on the planet. Because if you are not aware that we have a problem, then you're just not awake right now. Like I would say, first of all, wake up. And second of all, once you wake up to that, you realize that you have an opportunity to find meaning and to relate your life to that meaning-making exercise. And here's the trick. It all actually, if we believe the United Nations, pans out in the next 15 years. So what they said, the Sustainable Development Goals was signed off by all 193 leaders of the world. with all of their scientific teams and all their people that advise them, and they all agreed. In Paris in the year 2015, in September, in New York, they signed a document called Transforming Our World. If you read the document, you'll read paragraphs in there that will alarm you about the state of where we are on the planet. And you guys all know climate change, population increases, potential, you name it, from biotechnology to biodiversity to life on land, life underwater. These are all the challenges that we face. And you land right smack in the middle of all that. And most of you will probably want to be happy. And then there's this meaning-making exercise. So what are you going to do with your life in terms of this challenge that we have? And that's where, because I spend a lot of time talking about sustainable development goals with people, and I just finished, for example, 52 roundtables talking in all the communities of British Columbia, talking in all these different communities with leaders, mayors, politicians, city planners. How are we going to do this? How are we going to get through the next 15 years sustainably tackle climate change, etc.? And a lot of people hit this point where they go, I don't really feel a lot of hope around that. Like climate change, guaranteed we are going to hit 2 degrees, which is the danger threshold on climate change. If you want to know the math, it's very simple. In the year, put it this way. In 2011, the International Panel on Climate Change said if you want to avoid dangerous climate change, we can only put another 900 gigatons of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. By the time we signed the document in 2015, we'd gone through half of what's called that budget, and we will burn through the rest by the year 2020, which is when the actual agreement comes into place. So you're trying to avoid something that's a done deal by the time you get to 2020. You are guaranteed in your lifetime right now to get 3.5 degrees, and that is a completely different planet. And that's sombering for any one of us. But going back to your point about meaning making, which is Viktor Frankl's point, is that when we search for meaning, we are more likely to find our personal potential on the planet to be fulfilled, to find states of flow, to find states of happiness or fulfillment or meaning. And therein lies the opportunity for you. Because what I say to people who say, well, I need to hear something more hopeful than that, what I say to young people is I say, look, I said this the other day to folks, I'm going to just look you in the eyes these days and I tell everybody the same story. It might not be that hopeful. I just got to square with you. It's a bit like Lao Tzu said in The Art of War. If you're in a battle and you're going to lose, the best thing you can do is tell your troops, we might not win this, but at least they get creative because they know that this is the truth. And what I keep saying to young people is I'm not going to give you the crutch of hope and tell you at the end, if you just recycle, we're going to be okay. But I'd rather tell you at this point, from my experience working all over the world, working some of the toughest planets, I've worked with child soldiers in Sierra Leone, worked in Nigeria in some of the toughest contexts that I know. My experience after coming out of all that is that the hope thing doesn't matter to me anymore. What matters is that we're engaged in struggle, finding meaning and finding our potential as individuals towards that end. And we may not get to where we hope, but if we right now are in the place that we want to be, which is to be engaged, to be doing this kind of thing you're doing tonight, finding what is our potential as a species, then we have a lot more of a chance at happiness. Which brings us to the human-urban lens. I'm not an expert on the urban question, but I can tell you that the one thing that the Sustainable Development Goals tell you is that if you want to look at the urban question, you cannot do it to the exclusion of the other 16 goals. And that would be the 3 things that I'll tell you tonight, is that the goals, that when you read about them, are very aspirational. We want to end all poverty in all its forms for everyone by the year 2030. Never met in the hundreds of people, actually thousands of people that I've talked to now, very few people stand up and believe that statement, that in 15 years we'll actually get everybody out of poverty everywhere on this planet. It's very difficult, but it's a beautiful statement of potential. And the same thing holds true for the gender equality goal, for the justice goal, for the urban sustainability goal, for all of the different 17 goals. They're very aspirational. They're also very integrated. So if you wanted to tackle one, you can't tackle that one without thinking about the other. And that also puts you into a beautiful place on the planet. So if you want to try to tackle urban, are any of you urban, just curious, the urban thing, are you urban developed, and you are? What do you study?
Development planning.
Development planning. What is it about urban development planning that really gets you juiced and you decided to spend your life doing that?
It involves everything. What does it involve? Everything from questions about happiness to the environment, to sociology and identity and space and meaning, everything.
I totally agree. And that's where the Sustainable Development Goals give you the perfect rubric. Because up until now, we often separated these subjects. We said, I'm an environmentalist, or I'm doing the gender equality thing. You want me to slow down? Oh, great. Okay, 2 minutes, I will. I promise I'll wrap it up. That's exactly the whole point about the Sustainable Development Goals, is that you can take whatever your passion is, and you can focus it on it knowing that it's so related to the other goals that it's indivisible. They're saying at the UN, don't pick and choose. Like, you can pick and choose your expertise. What are you studying?
I'm in arts.
You're in arts, perfect. You can study the arts and know that the arts and culture and well-being and our potential to express ourselves is in the goals, and that that's not necessarily a subject that has nothing to do with gender equality. That might actually have a lot to do with gender equality. Same thing, I don't know, what do you study? Yeah.
Urban housing.
Urban housing, same. What do you study? Engineering, physics. Yeah, you can usually fit into the goals. So this is my invitation to you is to take a look at what you're personally doing. Take a look at the goals, because you will find that they're unbelievably inspirational. They're integrated, and here's the other thing, is they're universal. For the first time on the planet, we've actually decided that everybody everywhere has to develop. So it's not about the developing world, which is what the MDGs were about. The SDGs are saying that every single country has to develop. So sustainable consumption and production is one of the goals. It's Canada that has to develop. It's the United States that has to develop on that goal, because we're using up more than our footprint on the planet. You follow me on this? Right? So here's the invitation. Take a look at the goals if you can, study them, and then ask yourself, what do I want to do in my life, and how does it fit into those goals? And could I find meaning in my expression? And I bet that you can. And therein lies the nexus between happiness in a sense, meaning making in a sense, and this international agenda. Am I under 2 minutes? Where'd it go? Am I good? Okay, I'll hand it over. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about this. This will be fun. Who am I handing it over to? Don't clap this week. Here we go.
Thank you, Michael. That was a very insightful speech on happiness, this topic, and it gives us a lot of inspiration from this topic. Now we open the floor for open discussion, so anybody has anything to say, like either questions or replies or anything, all ups are welcome. Anybody?
So this is a question for Mike. Now replies after Mike's answer to this are very welcome. We want to make sure that everyone is included in this discussion. So my question is basically what you mentioned in the UN SDG training event was that we really need to get things right here before we get things right elsewhere. For example, if we want to apply the UN SDGs somewhere else in the world, that we want to help those people. How do you see the progress that we've made here in Canada to eliminate poverty, to get people good jobs and education? Because these are very important parts of the UN SDGs. I just want to hear your thoughts on our progress on that.
I actually said that, eh? That's interesting. Because the thing is, when I think of right here, the hat that I'm wearing these days, my identity structure, I go, well, where is here anymore? Where is my home? Where's the boundary between my place and that other place? Or even where's the boundary between my group and that other group that I'm going to go and help? Do you follow me on this? So the way social psych, we're going to have a social psychologist tonight, we get to talk more about this, but basically, there's a stage structure to the way human identity works, and it tends. My daughter, for example, is egocentric, and she thinks about herself. Like everything is about. She's 4, right? That's what she's supposed to do. But I'm hoping that at some point she'll get sociocentric, and she'll start to think about people around her and identify as a group, like her family or her soccer team or her school or something. And about 70% of the population will stay sociocentric. The problem with the goals, the problem with what we're asking people to think with this global hat on, is to think even wider than that, which is to think about global problems, this kind of global identity. And that requires us to jump out of the us and them boundary, the me and the you boundary. Very difficult for a lot of people to do that. And that is the nature of some of the bigger questions like climate change, is you're actually trying to think of yourself as a Nigerian, or as a Sierra Leonean, or as a Peruvian, or whatever. There's floods going on in Peru right now. You could think it's those people over there in Peru, or you can, as a world-centric thinker with a very wide identity structure, you can say, that's my rainforest, that's my planet, that's my place that's flooding right now. And do you see the difference? So when your question is very good, in the sense that we inhabit each one of those structures at any given time. It's not like you ever lose egocentric thinking. right? I'll never grow out of it. An oak does not grow out of an acorn. Like you were always an acorn and you grew into an oak tree. So you're egocentric, sociocentric, and then world-centric. And the same thing's going on with global thinking. I'm an individual, and then I'm a Canadian, and then I'm an international person. And you're asking me, before we go and be international, do we have to get our own act together as Canadians? And there's a lot of evidence that we do. We have more credibility when we do that. And so Canada has to think about some of the things that we face here in Canada around that identity structure, which is very, very clear to me that we're doing that in Canada. Go anywhere to the north. I lived in the north for a long time. And you'll quickly see the difference in the demographics of Canada and poverty, or Canada and education, and so on. I'm seeing lots of nods, so are there more questions, or how do you want to structure this, sir? Go ahead.
Pick one, a global question or a personal question?
Whatever you want.
Okay, for you personally, what is the balance between deciding to do something because it has more meaning, because there is more need, versus deciding to do something because it's something that you fit better into?
That I fit better into?
Yeah.
Because I'm better at it?
Yeah. Or
Sounds like you're
are you
working with that right now?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's less important. What has been your experience?
Well, I've never been much good at a lot of things, so what I would say is that the state of flow that I talked about earlier, of this idea of meaning making and finding a state of flow. There's a very good Czechoslovakian psychologist, you will know how to pronounce his name. Do you know? It's
Csikszentmihalyi.
Thank you for saving me on that. Very good read on flow, because what he basically says is that if you're good at something, like let's say I can play the piano and I'm pretty good at it, okay? If I just play the piano, I won't get into a state of flow. I have to kind of play the piano in a little bit more creative a way that it's a challenge to me, so that I'm not actually feeling that I'm very good at it. Extreme sports are perfect for this. You're skiing down the hill. If you can just make that skiing and you're good at it, you'll have a good ski, but you won't feel that state of oneness, state of flow, like you're in the groove. You know what I'm talking about? Anybody do a sport like that where you just get in the groove, or you play music or something? That groove of state of flow only happens if you're on the edge of creativity where you are challenged, personally challenged. Therefore, you are actually not good at it yet. Because to be good at something is to master it. Once you've mastered it, you're not necessarily in a state of flow anymore. You've already done that. You played the piano that way 1,000 times. And what every jazz musician is looking for, every artist is looking for, everybody who's an athletic person, kinesthetically, they're looking for that state of flow where they're pushed to their potential and they reach it, and somehow they groove on it. And intellectually and creatively, and for me, I seek that every day. I'm seeking it right now with you. I'm trying to get to the edge of your question to be able to figure out what's this guy trying to ask and where can I offer something, right? The more challenging the question, the more I could possibly get there. And that's for you to decide exactly how you get there.
What's the name of that psychologist? Giuseppe?
It's pronounced Csikszentmihalyi. I can spell it for you.
Yeah, it's really hard to spell. It's like, if you just look up flow, states of flow, and you'll get it on Google, yeah? Should I pass this around? Does that make sense?
So I just recently moved to Vancouver from South Africa, and the one question that I have whenever SDGs are brought up is, especially coming from the global south, we feel isolated from it. And part of it is because it comes from the UN, and we would all love to respect the UN and buy into these as global ideals. But there is a very definite and real sense that the UN and global institutions have got a balance of power that significantly favors developed countries. So it's less likely for me to be able to willingly accept and engage in these SDGs as a source of meaning making, the way that you put it forward.
Sure. Well, let me tell you the story that might change your mind. The MDGs were designed by the United Nations by 10 men sitting in a room. Okay, that's who designed the 8 Millennium Development Goals. When they decided to do the SDGs, the world protested because of that exact argument about the UN, is that it's a developed country group of experts telling the rest of the world what to do. And so what they did is to design the SDGs, they went through 4 or 5 years where they asked people all over the world, thousands of people, what should be the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's why you get such a long list. You got 17 goals, 169 targets, and everybody said this is important, this is important, this is important. When they came to negotiations, if you've ever been to UN meeting, and I've been to plenty, you spend a lot of time, it's called bracketing texts and arguing and countries postulating with each other and people negotiating and bartering. That's the goal, right? This time, the G77, those are the poorest 77 countries, they got together ahead of time And some people stood up, people from the Marshall Islands, for example, and they said climate change for us is happening now. And poverty for us is happening now. We don't want something in the future. We don't want to have poverty for extreme poverty. We want the solution now. And it's the next 15 years do or die for us. So one of the guys stood up from the Marshall Islands and said, I've already had to buy land on Fiji. We're moving 6 years from now because we're flooded out. And so they got together, the G7 countries, and they said, if you change to the developed countries one word of this document, we're voting as a bloc. So Canada, under the Harper government, went there at the time. We were opposed to universality. We said, there's no poverty in Canada, we're not going to report on it with the UN. The G7 said to countries like Canada, you know what? We're going to outvote you. Because this agenda is important to us now. And so what you got there is the developing world and the world that has traditionally been ostracized by the UN and the power dynamics of the Security Council and so on being completely outvoted. So it's a very inspiring story of people on the planet saying to the rest of the world, you know what? You're not the ones that are going to feel this first. We're feeling it first. This is what we want. And it is why, when you read the text, you'll read such inspirational language. You'll read stuff there that, I mean, how are we going to get rid of poverty and all this ones everywhere for everyone, when just to get rid of extreme poverty, we have to pull 800 million people out of poverty. Extreme poverty, that's $1.25 a day. We have to do it in 800 weeks. But they came to the table and said, you know what? We don't care, because we need to radically shift the program. And just to give you an example of that, because people often say, oh, these sustainable development goals are way too expensive, etc. I said the other day at this meeting, there's 8 people on the planet right now. A year ago, I'd stand up in front of groups and I'd say there's 62 people on the planet with as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion. 62 people. This year, the stats have changed. It's 8 people. 8 people have as much money as the bottom 3.5 billion. And somebody comes along and says, we can't afford to fix this problem. Well, what the G7 country said is, yeah, we can if we change the attitude. And so they've come forward with a very aggressive agenda. And I look at it and I go, man, right on, we got that figured out. It's 2017 and our species figured out a way forward. I don't know if that changes your perspective, but I think sometimes people don't know the history of how the SDGs were evolved. I've been talking a long time, and I'm always aware that I can rant. So, shall I sit down, or do you want more questions, or leave? There may not be any more questions. So that, we're good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good.
For those who wanted to speak and ask questions or so, we will have discussion after if you want to connect and just like chat with each other. And now let's welcome Stephen. He will introduce us to our panelists for today.
Can I also give another round of applause for Mike, who didn't actually give him that. Yeah? All right. Anyway, so I'm going to invite our panelists and Mike as well to come up here. And we'll start the panel pretty soon. I'm going to first introduce Aiden, who's right beside me right here. And Aiden Scott is the founder of Sweetbox, a project to support people to take goal-oriented actions for an emotionally better life. He wants to see people win every day, set a goal, and build the confidence to see it through. And also we have Dr. Elizabeth Dunn. She is a UBC professor, and she's an expert in self-knowledge and happiness, with a current focus on how mobile technology can both support and undermine career well-being. She is the co-author of Happy Money, the Science of Happier Spending, and a TEDx talk about a very similar topic. And lastly, we have Robin Chan. She's from Evergreen, and she's been the incredible force behind the 101 Day project in Vancouver for the last 3 years. A project that strives to design 100 community projects in only 1 day. She's an expert in civic engagement and collective action as a way to boost happiness and connections in cities. We get a round of applause for the panel. And then I'm also going to hand it over to Elizabeth. Start off with a short introduction about what she does and who she is.
All right, so I am a social psychologist, which means, okay, I'll stand up, which means I basically study like regular people and how they behave in daily life. And I'm lucky enough to run what I call the Happy Lab here at UBC, where we try to figure out, using the best scientific methods, what actually shapes human well-being. So I think happiness is the kind of topic that people sometimes like to discuss over beers or other substances. Everyone kind of has an opinion about it. But actually, it is something that we can study using the best tools of science. So when I talk about happiness, there is actually a scientific definition of happiness that's most widely accepted in the sort of scientific community, and that has 3 parts. So one part is experiencing a fair bit of positive emotion. So a simple way that we look at that is to ask you, yesterday, you can try to answer this for yourself, yesterday did you laugh or smile? And then how much negative emotion do you experience? All of us experience negative emotion, that's normal, and nobody who does research on happiness would ever say that people should eliminate negative emotion from their lives. But when we look at somebody who's happy, we're generally seeing somebody who experiences a good deal more positive emotion relative to negative emotion. So that's 2 of the parts, and then the final part is looking at your satisfaction with your life. When you look at the kind of life you're leading, do you feel like, yeah, this is the kind of life that I want, that I care about? And those 3 components together make up this kind of scientific definition of happiness. And in my lab, what we're doing is figuring out what promotes happiness, how things like, tuning into our smartphones rather than each other might influence our well-being, how giving to others can support well-being, and lots of other questions that I can touch on more.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much, Liz. It's actually really interesting to hear a little bit about the psychology behind happiness, because it is often seen as something that's really, really hard to grasp and really hard to look at, and it still is. But it's also really important for us to get those scientific views, simply because it helps as a guidance tool, I would say, in our personal lives. And next, I'm going to hand it over to Aiden to give us introduction.
Hi. Well, I really want to appreciate the topic that you've already brought up, Michael. Viktor Frankl is a huge hero to me. I drive to pursue purpose, and not so much in myself anymore. As I went through my own lived experience of mental illness and went through recovery from past abuse as a child, I kind of felt like I was in Auschwitz in my own life there. And now I'm an international advocate for mental health, and I get to consult particularly on electronic mental health. And so we're going to have a great conversation, I can see now. But also, it is about striking up that balance that's been talked about. And so I want to talk about purpose, and we're going to talk on the panel as well. For me, it's within Speedbox, and what we're pursuing is this power of purpose and power of goal setting to get people to that win, whether it is daily or if it's weekly or it's monthly, but it's starting to break our life down into the moments. And for me, happiness is in those moments. Happiness isn't something, like Michael was saying, that is going to happen next week. Happiness can happen right here. And in fact, happiness will only happen here, and it happened 5 minutes ago, and there's the potential for it to happen 5 minutes from now. But that's really in all of our own power. And so for me, within Speakbox, that's what we're pursuing. How can we break down those barriers so that we can create community, where we can have individuals who have struggled connect with an individual who has an idea. And that idea can be something really simple about how to study better. Could be something like how to sweat today, how to go and be social today. And then using the power of mobile technology to scale that so that we could reach 100,000 people, 1 million people. That we could have people who are actively, in a communal way, sharing solutions instantaneously, without brick and mortar, without having to go to a psychologist's appointment, even though if you do have a diagnosis, that is a really good option. We'll talk about that more as well. But be able to get support. Thank you.
I actually heard about Speakbox at the Social Enterprise Conference, which was really great. It was a few weeks ago. And it's actually been very interesting because Aiden didn't have quite as much structure with that. Now, and it seems when he's talking about it, it sounds really, really exciting. So I really look forward to what comes out of that. And then lastly, I'd like to give the mic to Robin to introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Robin. I work for Evergreen. We're a national environmental not-for-profit. And I feel like I'm kind of the on-the-ground person on this panel. Teddy, who's one of the organizers, emailed me and asked me to speak about happiness and civic engagement, and said I was an expert. And I was like, oh, I guess that is what I do. So the programs that I work on at Evergreen are actually not environmentally based at all. I have a political science background. I'm very interested in what makes people engage. Like, what is the thing that makes you pick up the phone and call your representative, or what's the thing that makes you volunteer, and that kind of thing. So one of the programs that I work on, which Ketty volunteered for, is called 101 Day. It's an international festival of citizen activation. So it started in Bogota, Colombia in 2012 with this idea from a bunch of students of getting 100 people to do one urban intervention all in one day. And they ended up with 200 urban interventions that were like puppet meetups, which is really strange, you know, cleaning up the river. They did 100 same-sex marriages in one day, all kinds of things. So from there it spread around the world, and I ran the event here in Vancouver for 3 years. And it was all about finding the thing that will take a shy Vancouverite out of their shell and make them do one thing on one day that will make their city a better place. So we can talk a lot about what gets people ticking and how to like frame civic duty really as a positive, life-affirming thing. Thanks.
It's actually, I never heard the story behind how this started, but it's really awesome that you guys aimed for 100 and ended up with more than 200. I guess it's a little bit hopeful for the future. And now I'd like to start the Q&A part. I'm going to ask one question, and I hope the panel answers this, I guess, a little bit faster than maybe in 1 minute each, just so we can move on to other questions. But I'd like to get in 2 statements what happiness means to you and how you achieve it. Anyone wants to start?
Sure. Just because I'm on this side. What happiness means to me, to my previous point, it is presence. Happiness to me as somebody coming from a background of lived experience, having gone through mental illness, constantly my brain was warring between 2 times. And that was the future, and it was often very grim, and the past, and it was languishing there because it dwelt on the past. And so for me now, in a place of wellness, and talking about SDGs, obviously goal number 3, health and well-being, presence is how I experience happiness. It's the appreciation of the moment. It's the appreciation of dialogue with somebody and actually being present in that dialogue. How many of you can relate to being in a conversation with somebody and you're thinking, they're like, oh, I have to be in a course in 5 minutes, or oh, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? That's counter happiness to me. So I think, yeah, let's all be present.
So as a scientist, of course, I prefer to stick to the scientific definition of happiness. But one thing maybe I'll just add what I already said is that, I think sometimes people like to draw a distinction between happiness on the one hand and meaning on the other. And one perhaps surprising finding from scientific research is that actually these 2 experiences of happiness and meaning, while somewhat distinct, are actually incredibly highly correlated. So there is a huge overlap. In fact, although we have this image of like the meaningful but like miserable existence, that's actually a pretty rare phenomenon. And in fact, when people are experiencing positive affect, enjoying themselves, they're actually more likely to find meaning in what they're doing. So I would suggest to you that finding meaning and finding happiness are part of a similar search, and we've actually done research to show just that.
I had this question in advance and I couldn't think of what my definition was. But I think I would definitely agree with Aiden in terms of like, when I feel truly content, it's when you're like in that moment and just present and aware and almost thankful for what you have around you. Does that make sense?
This is a good question. So I was thinking about it on the bus here. And I come from a particular training where I spend a lot of time in the sentence structure of I am happy, concentrating on the I part that recognizes that we are happy. Which is interesting because when I'm happy, I usually don't feel it in the moment that I'm happy. I note it afterwards and go, oh, I was happy, or I was unhappy, or I'm feeling cold. The I is feeling the cold. So the cold is not me, right? It's happening to me. The happiness is not me, it's It's happening to me in the same way unhappiness happens to me or anger happens to me, etc. So the I-ness is what I'm spending a lot of time on these days, trying to go, what is that? That's the Socratic question, know thyself, right? What is that recognizes that you're happy? Because that thing chooses to be happy or unhappy, or it knows that it's happy or it's unhappy. And therein lies one of the deeper mystical questions around this question of what is happiness? Because we can make the mistake that we are happiness, that the I is happy. It's very different than I am happy. You can even hear it in sentence structure. It's very, very interesting little philosophical kind of conundrum.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. I'm starting to think about it, and I don't know where to start. But anyway, so I'd like to take a question from the audience. It could be directed to one person or both. I guess I'll give it to the chat.
On the camera on Facebook.
I would, it seems to me that all of you have a work that is very much directed to the world and impact in the world. So first off, what is your biggest challenge in that work? And second, how does that relate to the way that you connect with your work?
Anyone want to take that question?
I can kind of start. I don't know if I can phrase this properly. I guess so with 101 Day, we do a lot of outreach and we try and get people to sign up urban interventions without really knowing what an urban intervention necessarily is. And then my other project that I work on is trying to get people to lower their ecological footprints collectively as a neighborhood without feeling like a sense of guilt or a sense of giving things up. And so I think my challenge is always like, why can't you just think of this in a positive way and like, don't you want to do this? It's going to be so good. So kind of getting people who live in cities, who are surrounded and overwhelmed and overstimulated by things, to really start thinking about that, the simpleness of things and like what one thing they can do to make things better, without like, this is why this is good for the world, that kind of thing.
So I would say my research, tends to focus on the factors that can promote happiness. And so just to give like a concrete example, in one study that we did, we actually approached people as they were on their way into one of the Starbucks downtown, and we randomly assigned them to either be efficient with the cashier, kind of like get in and get out with their coffee, or to be social, to like have a chat with the cashier and treat it as an actual social interaction. And what we find in that study is that, and in other sort of similar studies that we've done, is that people leave Starbucks feeling happier and feeling more connected to their communities when they're assigned by the flip of a coin to be sociable rather than to be efficient with that little economic transaction. So our studies demonstrate that pretty clearly and demonstrate that in other ways as well. Where the challenge comes in for me, I think, is like as the person who's done that research, written about it in academic journals, written about it in the New York Times, talked about it on TV, is to like actually put it into practice in my own life can be difficult, right? Because I think in day-to-day life, I want to get in and get out with my coffee, So it can be hard to like remind ourselves, even if we're aware of that knowledge, to actually implement it in our day-to-day lives. And I think that's one of those big challenges, and it's one where thinking about urban design can potentially be helpful by including sort of even subtle structural factors in the environment that propel people to like actually talk to each other.
Makes me think that I should not digitally order my Starbucks anymore, that I should actually go talk to the cashier. Biggest challenge, balance. Humans, we seem to have a shared curse that we are our own worst enemy. I know that's very cliche and we say that all too often, but in mental health, especially in well-being, in this conversation of happiness, I really do believe it's quite true. And in my environment of trying to create a mobile-based solution, balance comes into effect in that exact scenario, is that I want somebody to be able to have simplicity on our service so that they aren't giving more screen time to our service. I want them to actually go out and do something. And so that in itself is inherently difficult because we're fidgeters, we are electronic occupiers in the sense that once we're in front of the screen, we just magically come up with 10 other things that we need to look at when we're on that screen. And so that's quite the conundrum, and that would be the biggest challenge.
Mike, do you want to answer?
I'll try. I would say the biggest conundrum is I've spent the last 30 years in social change, and the first 15 was as a filmmaker, and all I did was like really tough subjects. I would work with torture victims in Central America, or I did films on the mass rape of Serbian women as a war tool, or climate change, or I worked with child soldiers in Sierra Leone where they're cutting hands off. These are tough subjects, tough world, and the biggest challenge there is to stay present with what arises as a human being, because we can aspire to be happy. The bottom line is there are times where we're just not going to be happy, and it's not appropriate to be happy. And so how do you, if you're in a tough world like that, be present to what arises as a human being, which is not to pursue happiness all the time. There's times where I just definitely don't want to be happy. Those are not happy moments, but I need to be present to that, so that when happiness arises, I can be present to happiness as well. It's that same understanding, who is it that's choosing to be unsatisfied with the world, happy with the world, unhappy with the world? Who is that? And if I can be present to that, then I can be present to happiness, because I do have my happy moments. Very quite often, actually. Hopefully.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So, more questions?
Hi, my name is Malaika. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So, Elizabeth, you mentioned that there's a direct correlation between happiness and meaningfulness, if I'm correct. So I'm at the stage, as I guess many of us here, where we're looking at career choices and finding meaningful work. So I recently read that about 80% of jobs today will not exist 30 years from now. So how do you recommend, what do you all recommend for students to look for meaningful work and find purpose in their work moving forward? So it's open to anyone.
So I think that's a really important challenge, and I think that, so actually a new direction that our lab is taking is to think about exactly this problem, that so many jobs that exist today are likely to disappear. We know, like, there's a great deal of research suggesting that unemployment is really bad news for well-being. In fact, there was recently a paper that basically said no further research is needed. Like, we just know this. Like, that relationship is well established. But what we don't know, and that I think we need to figure out, is in a world where work for many people is just not available. I mean, forget meaningful work, like just even work is not available. How do we create happiness in that space? And that's actually, so that's a new question that I think is open to empirical research and that we want to figure out. So, and one thing I just wanted to mention, because I have to take off in a few minutes to go to another event, is if you're interested in tackling happiness, questions related to happiness from a scientific perspective, you know, our lab is there, and I would welcome people to get involved. But that's a question that we want to try to tackle. And one idea that we have that we need to test is that perhaps people may be able to redefine an aspect of their lives, so to think of themselves not to define themselves in terms of work, but to find other self-definitions, like to define yourself as a caregiver or a maker or in some other way that isn't necessarily part of the sphere of work. And if we're right, and this is just a hypothesis at this stage, that starting to develop that self-definition earlier may sort of buffer you against the potentially detrimental effects of facing a world where many jobs are evaporating.
I could definitely add plausibility to that. I think in my own life, I already mentioned it, you know, identifying myself as an advocate, and particularly in mental health, and choosing mental health as a particular focus. Professionally, I worked in client care in call centers for several years of my life, which is vastly different from that. Although there's a lot of psychological elements to working in client care, I will add. And so, absolutely, life now and in the future, I think, is just becoming far more fluid. In tech circles, we often use this discussion about the office. And is the office a physical thing anymore, or is it just a state of being at a point in my day? And in the technology industry, that's very much how we embrace it. The idea that we can work from home, work from airport, work from a park, it doesn't matter what you're doing. And so I think you're in an awesome place, you're in an awesome environment. You're coming out of university, and we can look at it in two ways. We can look at it in desperation, and yes, AI and robots, and sure. But we can also look at it in the other aspect of you have the power to not use that mic. We have the power to decide what we want to do. And today, more than any time in our history, particularly in Canada, we have that available to us. And so think to yourself, again, breaking out of those 8 hours, there might be what you do to get paid, but it's what you want to do with that other time in your day. It's what does that choosing how much you need to get paid to unlock the other potentials in your life. So I look at my job as one piece, and then I look at my salary as an opportunity to do all the things that I want to do and find purpose.
Thank you for answering all these very interesting questions. But before we move on, I'll take one more question. I know Liz has to go, so do you want to go now, or do you want
I'll
to
wait for the last question.
Okay, so one more question. I'll take it from the audience. Actually,
Now what are you going to do?
sorry. I guess, sorry, we're actually a little bit past time, so we're going to have to move on, but we're going to have a workshop session. We're going to give you a 3-minute break, and then I'm going to get Duncan and Carol to come up and introduce how the workshop is going to run, and then, yeah, we'll move on from there. Thank you, guys. Okay.